Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
How are you doing? We're
I'm
so
doing
pleased
fine.
to see you and that you accepted our interview.
Oh, very good. So there's 5 of you, or is there 6 or 7? 5.
We're 5.
5. So we can start.
Yeah, of course. Is it
Start
okay
now.
if we record the meeting?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool, that's cool. So we're a French collective of art students, and we have a show on the radio of our school that talks about movies, and we decided to see the King of Kong movie, and we're gonna talk about it. And so it's really great that you accepted the interview. Maybe we're gonna start with some basic questions. So first of all, how do you feel about the movie today, like 14 years later, and what souvenirs or what memories do you have about that event?
Well, the movie was filmed in 2005
Yes.
and in 2006. So it's 15 years to 16 years ago that all the footage was filmed.
Uh-huh.
So I don't generally watch the movie, but I've seen it many times in crowded theaters with the audience. So I've seen how they react to different things.
Okay.
So the movie has become larger than life. Do you know that expression?
Yeah.
Larger than life.
Larger than life.
Please forgive me if I presume that I'm saying something you don't understand, because I always think the French people don't understand English completely.
No, it's completely fine.
Apparently they do. So is everybody's English good?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can we can majorly understand pretty much everything you're saying.
So the movie started just as an innocent movie.
Yes.
And since then it's become an icon. It's become sort of a legend. In fact, about 3 or 4 years ago, a couple of famous film critics did a research study where they watched the 3,000 movies made in the past decade.
Mm-hmm.
And they ranked them to try and decide what was the greatest movie of those 3,000 in the last 10 years. And so they watched 3,000 movies to decide which were the 30 greatest movies. And they chose King of Kong as their 29th greatest movie. So that means there's a lot of other movies that are incredible, that have had a huge impact in the world, that they consider the King of Kong more significant, because it's extraordinary. I mean, I'm just amazed by the movie. It's extraordinary. It's literally brilliant. But the funny thing about it is that it's not true. I'm going to turn off my phone, but it's not true. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Start where I left off.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. See the movie almost as a fiction, you know, not as a documentary. Like how the characters and the story is depicted. It seems almost as.
Can you hear me? Okay, I can't hear you. So the movie is an amazing, iconic film. And it's very beloved. There are people out there who've seen it 100 times. I get messages all the time from people telling me that they're watching The King of Kong for the 39th time, the 55th time. So it has a tremendous impact on the culture of our times. And everybody in the worldwide film industry has watched it many times. It's the head of what's the name of the film company? Is it New Line Films? It's one of his favorite films. And but what's interesting is that it's not a true story. It was hand built. It was made by scratch. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. That's crazy. Because it seemed that way to us when we watched it, and we've watched it like 3 times already.
When's the last time you saw it? Can't hear you.
On last Monday.
Okay, last Monday. Okay, so the movie's still fresh in your mind.
Yes.
Okay. So they had everybody mic'd up. Lots of people were mic'd up, and they constantly recorded audio footage.
Yes.
They had numerous cameras walking around filming everybody. So by the time they were done, and they bought someone else's film stuff too, someone else's footage. I'm just going by memory. I think it might have been 4,000 hours of stuff they had between the video and audio. I may be wrong. That might be the wrong number. In fact, that might be too much. Maybe it was 400 hours. I don't know, 400
already a
lot. And then once they finally decided what the storyline was, they had all their audio and video footage indexed. Okay, so they could draw things out as they needed it to fit each moment in the film. And I'll give you an example. There was one moment when they had a film camera at Billy Mitchell's home, filming him sitting on the couch with a phone on his ear.
With the phone.
And the producers of the movie are back at the Fun Spot, the famous arcade, filming the people playing. And the producer says to Billy over the phone, he says, "Wow, these guys here are looking at these computer screens like they're looking at their girlfriends," which is kind of a funny remark. And Billy laughs and says, "Yes, not even Helen of Troy got more attention." So you know who Helen of Troy is? The famous, beautiful queen in ancient Troy that led to the war. Remember Brad Pitt in Troy? Remember see Troy with Brad Pitt? Well, Helen of Troy was the one who got kidnapped, which led to the big war because she was so beautiful. She was the queen. And so Billy says, not even Helen of Troy got more attention and laughs. Later on, when they actually make the movie and they get to the point where I'm putting Billy Mitchell's score up, which is higher than Steve Weeby's score.
Yeah, from the record.
Yeah, from the recording. And then they switch to Billy immediately after that. And Billy says, not even Helen of Troy.
Okay.
So what they did is they used his footage to make him look like he was gloating. You know the word gloating? Okay, word gloating, like smug, like conceited.
Yeah.
And so they used his words in a way that they out of context. Okay. And tons of stuff in the movie was out of context, used to tell a different story than what really happened. Okay. Like, remember the scene when Billy finally comes in the arcade and Steve's sitting there?
Yes.
Steve turns around and says, hey, Billy. And Billy just looks over his shoulder for a moment and walks off.
Yeah, it's a horrible scene.
Oh, yeah. And I've been in about 10 different big theaters filled with people, and they all go crazy when Billy does it.
We went crazy.
What that scene is saying is that Billy is the ultimate cad, the ultimate rogue or villain, because he's completely in disrespect and scorn of Steve. But here's what actually happened. They filmed Billy stopping and having a warm interchange. In other words, they had a conversation. Billy did talk to him. They had a warm, friendly interchange, and Billy wished him well. And then they start walking off. And then he turns to his wife and says, there's some people I don't want to spend too much time with. He wasn't saying that because he's looking down at Steve. He's saying that because he knows there's a lot of controversy, and that if he stays there too long, people will say that he's trying to interrupt Steve's focus so that he'll lose his game, or he's watching Steve play so he'll learn Steve's tricks. There's so many ways, because of the controversy going on with these film crews, that he just didn't want to stay there and cause any problems for himself or Steve. So he walks on. However, that whole scene was changed to make Billy be a victim, even though it was completely a positive, warm-hearted interaction where there was no ill will involved. So you see, the movie was hand-built. It was built a piece at a time to tell the story they wanted us to tell, because they wanted to have a villain versus a hero.
Yeah, of course.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
You can really feel that when you're watching,
Yeah.
when we watch the movie. Like it seems that it isn't an accurate documentary. Is that what you say?
Oh no, it's not an accurate documentary, but it's a fun story, and it's a super popular story.
Yeah.
It's amazing how famous and how popular the movies become.
Yeah, of course. And how do you, so when the directors first approach each one of you, they pitched you the movie as a documentary. And how do you personally feel when you first see the movie and you realize it's a fiction?
Well, everybody was hurt. They felt hurt and they felt taken advantage of because the movie was misrepresented to us.
Yeah, of course. From the whole community of arcade gaming, I guess, in the USA.
All the people who were in it, even at first, Steve was upset with it.
Okay.
And later on, as people surrounded him with love, he began to realize, oh, I'm the hero.
Yeah, of course.
So Steve's a good guy. Billy's a good guy and Steve's a good guy. Neither one of them are villains and neither one of them are heroes.
They're just two guys playing video games.
Two guys playing video games, and they had an idea how to make a movie, and they made a great one. Yes.
So I have a question, and it's about Billy because we're talking about. So how is your relationship with Billy? Actually, I see that you're wearing the judge jersey.
Referee's jersey, yeah. Well, I have a friendly relationship with Billy because Billy's a very good person. When you get to finally meet him, you'll be very impressed with how genuinely friendly and how kind and generous and loving he is. He's completely devoted to his friends and to taking care of people and to helping people. And he goes out of his way to help people. So it's a very incorrect. Hey, Billy, say hello to the people from France. Billy.
Oh my God.
Billy, these people from France on Zoom.
Are these people we met when we were in France?
Yeah.
Hi, Billy. How are you?
How are you doing?
That's crazy to have you on the phone.
Interviewing me on Zoom right now, and they're asking questions about King of Kong, and I'm telling them the real story. And then they asked me about you, and I told them what a good guy you are. So, Billy, prove to them that you're a good guy.
Don't believe anything Walter says unless it's bad.
Hi,
Wow.
Billy.
Hi.
We just want to say that we just commend your sauce. We think that it will be a good sauce. We don't know yet, but we will receive it soon. So,
what is your best recipe for tasting your sauce?
How should they use your sauce? How should they use your sauce?
The best way the most popular use here is people use it on chicken or chicken wings.
Okay.
that's a good advice.
Yeah, thank you.
Walter, we were in France more than a decade ago. Did we meet these people or no?
So here's the story. In August of 2005, Billy and I and other members of the US national video game team were flown to London, actually to Croydon, which is a suburb of London. And we were at the Classic Gaming Expo UK. And we were there for a few days as they had the event. And then we made this huge banner, a big banner that was 4 feet wide and 8 feet tall. And on it said, proclamation. The gamers of the United Kingdom challenge the gamers of France to a London versus Paris video game championship to settle a 650-year-old rivalry. Because you remember, France and England had, I think it was 7 major world wars, 7 major that fought all corners of the world. So we thought, why don't we have a London versus Paris video game championship and solve it once and for all? So we brought that big banner, which was signed by hundreds of British gamers, and brought it to Paris and went to a company called Hachette Publishing Company. which published like 15 video game magazines. And we presented that big banner to them and issued the challenge. But eventually nothing happened, nothing came out of it, because right after that, the King of Kong came out, and that completely took our attention away from the thing. But maybe that could be something you guys could do. Maybe you could find that publishing company called Hachette, 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 and go and talk to the editors and see if you can't find that big banner that's now 16 years old. You could take a big picture of yourself posing around it and send it to me.
Yeah, that would be so cool. Yeah.
And so anyway, that's the story. So we were there, and it was great. We had lunch with all the editors of the magazines and stuff like that. And but we never went back to Paris.
Yeah, there are some images of you in Paris and in London in the making of.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah. And it's so funny because in the making up, you are like one time popping in Paris, one time popping in London.
That's
and
right.
It's very hard to understand where you are.
That's
where
right.
you
And
are.
there's some footage from Paris. So hold on, Bill, I'm hanging up on you. But you're going to interview him sometime later, don't you?
Yeah, we sent him a message, but he didn't. He didn't answer. Yeah.
Very nice talking to you. Thank you so much for calling. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Have a
You're
nice day.
So Billy's a very good human being. And the movie put him in the role of being a villain, took a lot of circumstantial stuff and made it look like bad stuff was going on. There were some mistakes made. Like, for instance, when I did put Billy's score up off the recording, I realized immediately, whoa, that was a mistake. So that was taken down right after the weekend was over. And Steve's score then became the world record again. And it stayed the world record for 8 months. During the entire time that the King of Kong's being filmed and all that footage of Steve saying I was treated unfairly, or they didn't honor me, or they won't recognize me, he's the champion during that whole time. So it's like a false narrative.
Yeah,
all that stuff he's saying is not true, because if you go online, you find out that his record's in first place.
Yeah.
So a lot of
like
stuff,
a post-mortem truth. It's very strange.
yeah. So it's a lot of mischief. It's a lot of not fair play.
It's 2 o'clock.
So that was my computer. So what's your next question?
Hi.
So do you guys like chicken wings?
Yeah.
I don't eat chicken. I'm a vegetarian.
We heard that you raised a trading card game. How is it going about this project?
Well, I don't publish a trading card game, even though that's a good idea. I publish trading cards.
Okay.
So I've designed like, let me see if I can find something. I've designed 5,000 different trading cards, and about 3,300 of them are actually published and printed and distributed around the world. So I publish video game, I publish football, American football. I publish, war like World War II and American Civil War, and then movie history. You would like the movie history ones. I publish movie history ones. And so that's what I've been doing for, I'm in my 11th year now, publishing trading cards. Let me see if I can grab a couple. Like here's a trading card for the famous Will Wheaton. Do you know Will Wheaton?
Yes.
From Star Trek, isn't he? Isn't Will Wheaton from Star Trek?
Okay. Yes. Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so that's Will Wheaton's trading card. And here's a famous science fiction author named John Jackson Miller. So I do science fiction. I do.
And how can we find those cards? Because in French we don't.
I don't know if there's a place that distributes them or not, but you can see what they look like online by going to the Walter Day Collection.
Okay.
That's THEWALTERDAY collection.com. And there's a gallery. You can click on the gallery and you can see all the different trading cards, or a lot of them anyway. They're not all on there because it's so much work to get them on. Shouldn't the guy in back? ask a question too.
Hi,
What is your name?
my name is Guillaume.
Guillaume, like Bill, William.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm asking to you about your music because you are portrayed by the movie like a musician too.
In 1985, I had this beautiful girlfriend that I was madly in love with. And then one night she calls me up and she says, Walter, I secretly have been seeing a friend of yours. So she had got involved with a friend of mine secretly when I didn't know it. And so that night we broke up, and it caused so much heartache and so much pain. If you've ever gone through that experience, you know, that for some reason I started hearing music come out of here. And it was like original new songs that had melodies, that had lyrics, had harmonies. So I started writing them all down and singing them to a tape recorder. And it's been 36 years, but finally I recently did with the plans to always go and produce those songs, so other people could hear what I was hearing in there. And finally I got a GoFundMe started, and I raised the money to actually start producing the songs. So I've gone into the music studio here in Iowa, the American state I live in. And we've worked on 10 of the songs. I sang about 25 of the songs to the producers at the studio, and they chose the 10 that they thought were the best. So we've been working on them. So far we put down the drum tracks, the bass tracks, and the rhythm guitar tracks. And they're going to start sending them to me because I have what's called Pro Tools. Pro Tools is a recording software that's on my Mac. So I can maybe do some experiments and add it and see if I can get the songs more developed. So it's actually a process that's going on. And that's sort of my heart's desire. Way more than trading cards or video games or anything else. My heart's desire is to actually produce the music that I was hearing play inside. So we'll see what comes out of that.
We could do music together.
So you're a musician?
Yeah, a little bit. I play guitar and I sing. But I saw your videos of you playing, and I was thinking a lot about Americana or bluegrass feelings, and that's a style that touched my heart very much. So I was so glad to hear your thoughts in music and hear you right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, it's very dear and very important to me.
We wanted to ask you some questions about your backstory and how did you ended up being, first of all, a video game referee, and did you start playing video games and then you got into the competition and the referee, and how did all that happen?
Well, I was born in California.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Oakland, California, but I grew up in Anaheim, California, a couple miles from Disneyland.
Okay.
So I actually was in Disneyland like on the third day of its existence. So Disneyland and an amusement attraction is very much a part of my DNA. Okay. And but my parents moved back to Boston, where they were from. So I grew up in Boston. And there in Boston, I went through the usual life that people go through in Boston back then. And I was part of you know the word hippie? I was part of the hippie craze here in the 60s. And I lived in Haight-Ashbury, which is in San Francisco, which is a famous hippie place.
Okay.
So for about a year and a half, I was what you call a hippie. And after a year and a half of taking drugs and being involved in the drug culture, I was pretty burned out. I was pretty burned out because it hurt me. You know, marijuana and LSD and that stuff hurt me real bad. And so I discovered Transcendental Meditation. So you might have heard me mention Transcendental Meditation because I was so burned out that I went to a lecture one night and the person giving the lecture didn't bother to even show up. But someone else who was there listened to my description of what I was going through. And he says, I went through that too, but I got rid of that by practicing something called Transcendental Meditation. So what I was going through is that I couldn't sleep well at night. My feet hurt, my back hurt, my digestion was wrong, I had headaches, I couldn't focus, I couldn't think clearly. And this was all the side effects of having taken drugs. So I went and I learned Transcendental Meditation, and all of those problems went away. And I was so impressed that I decided that I would learn how to be a teacher of Transcendental Meditation. So for the whole decade of the 70s, like 1970 to 79, I was a teacher of Transcendental Meditation in the Boston area while going to college, studying history and English. But I moved to Fairfield, Iowa. See, I'm in Iowa right now, which is in the middle of the United States, near Chicago.
Okay.
So I'm in Chicago. I'm near Chicago in Iowa, and it's countryside. It's all cornfields. So I'm surrounded by farmland. And to do something, I went to Texas to become an oil broker, selling oil over the phone, for gasoline, for automobiles and for planes and stuff. And one night, a project I was working on with another person, he says, I can't do this anymore. I have to go play Space Invaders. And I said, what the heck is Space Invaders? So he took me to an arcade. It was my first arcade ever.
That's the first time you saw a video game.
I think I'd seen one before. I'd seen Pac-Man a few months earlier, but I didn't have any attraction to it. So this was my first experience with video games. He took me into an arcade, and I started playing Space Invaders, and I fell in love with it. And so I started playing Space Invaders about 3 times per week. About 3 nights per week, I'd go over there and play Space Invaders. And then I discovered Pac-Man, and I discovered Centipede, until I got to the point where I was playing video games every day. Then I had a business where I'd go on the road and I would get in my car and I would drive from city to city selling old newspapers. Old newspapers means antiques, like books, like old antique books. For instance, I sold copies of the Paris Gazette from the 1640s. That's how old. 300, almost 400 years old. Paris, I think it was the Paris Gazette from the 1640s. And I have London Chronicles from the 1720s. And so I had old newspapers, and I used to sell them to history teachers and to people who wanted to hang things on the wall for an interior decor. And while I was on the road, I would play video games everywhere I went. Finally, I decided I wanted to open my own arcade. And I discovered that the town near to I'm in Fairfield, Iowa, but 24 miles away is Ottumwa, Iowa. And it just happened that I discovered that there wasn't an arcade in Ottumwa, and that there was a company that's willing to lease the games to me if I choose to open up an arcade. So me and a close friend opened up Twin Galaxies, and we got the games in there on a lease so that they would take 50% of the money that was in the cash box, and I would keep 50% of it. And that's how Twin Galaxies started. But when I was on the road traveling all that time, and I was playing video games in all these different arcades, I would start writing down the scores that I saw in the games. I became very, very intrigued by just the process of excellence in video game playing. And I was interested in what it took to be a true champion. Like, was a champion using more of their brain? Were they on a higher level of consciousness? And that's a recurring theme in my studies from having learned Transcendental Meditation, because ideally Transcendental Meditation elevates you or lifts you up to a higher state of consciousness. So I was intrigued by what level of mind power a video game player was using to be the ultimate world record holder. So I have been writing down scores that I saw in arcades around America. so that when someone finally got a high score in my new arcade, which we call Twin Galaxies, I was so intrigued by that I wanted to find out if it was indeed the new world record. And so when I called, it was on Defender. Someone got a high score on Defender. And when I called up Williams Electronics to ask them if this was a new world record, because he played for like 24 hours, they told me, we don't know. We have no idea what the world record is because no one keeps track of the scores.
Yeah, you had a spot.
And so I called up 2 magazines and 7 video game manufacturers and asked them what the high scores were in different games. And they all said, we don't know. No one keeps track of the scores. So what I did is I decided that night that the next day, call them all back and tell them that we have a scoreboard and we're keeping track of the scores. And for some stroke of karma, some stroke of destiny, all 9 of those people, all 7 of those video game manufacturers and those 2 magazines all said, that's incredible. Thank you. That's a wonderful service you're doing. Thank you. And then they said, who are you? And I said, we're the Twin Galaxies National Scoreboard. Off the top of my head, I had to make up a name immediately. So it's the Twin Galaxies National Scoreboard. And so this is wonderful. And they took my name down. Some of them didn't ask who we were. I just gave them my number. But a couple of them asked who we were. And I said the Twin Galaxies National Scoreboard. And they took my phone number down and gave it to their receptionist who answers the phone. And they kept it in their Rolodex, little card file on the desk where all the phone numbers are, so that whenever anybody calls up about high scores, they would refer them to me. And so those 9 phone calls took a half an hour to make. And then I went back to playing Gorf. Do you remember Gorf? Gorf, Gorf?
No, I don't remember that one.
It's an old game from 1981, Gorf. So I went back to playing Gorf. And 30 minutes later, one of my attendants who helped me run the arcade tapped me on the shoulder and says, there's a phone call. Someone's calling from far away and they want to know a score on a video game. So my eyes opened wide and I went to the phone and it was a man named Casey Murphy who was calling from Goodlettsville, Tennessee, which is, like 800 miles away. Near Nashville, Tennessee. You've heard of Nashville because that's where music is. Nashville, Tennessee. And he wanted to report a score on Galaga. You've heard of Galaga, of course.
Yes.
And so he told me what a score was. And I looked up at our scoreboard and I saw that our night watch person, our night attendant, had a higher score than him. So I told him in a real serious voice, I says, sir, you have the second highest score in the world. And he went wild and says, oh my God, I can beat that. So he called back the next day with a higher score. So that was the beginning. That single phone call was the very beginning. And it happened just 30 minutes after I made those 9 phone calls. Suddenly, overnight, we became the most important arcade in the world.
Yes.
Overnight, we became the most famous arcade in the world. And overnight, we became the crossroads of the video game age. So that people would start coming to our arcade in Ottumwa, Iowa, which the mayor proclaimed the video game capital of the world. And they would come there just so they could even just say that they had been to Twin Galaxies. So Twin Galaxies became a very, very big deal, a very, very big experience for the video game industry of that time.
So it's just a coincidence where you saw a spot at a determined point. And you never even imagined that all the backlash that that little action could have. If I get this straight, is the backstory of the whole success of events that you're telling is the backstory meditation,
Without transcendental meditation, none of this would have happened, because the transcendental meditation is famous for giving you creative ideas, for helping your intelligence become better and clearer, for helping you to become sharper and helping you to be able to relate to people better. Just have more insight. You know that word, insight?
Yeah, insight.
How things could be done or how to do things. So it became like a step-by-step procession, a step-by-step process that was definitely completely enhanced and propelled by practicing transcendental meditation. I absolutely 100% say transcendental meditation was the basis for all the creativity and energy that led to the Twin Galaxies' success. Yes.
So yeah, now that you're explaining it, it's very clear about consciousness, higher consciousness, and mind game. But do you think it can apply? Transcendental meditation can make you stronger mentally. Can you apply it for other activities like sport or, I don't know, philosophy or studies, anything?
Let me tell you an experience. There's a big building here. It's in the shape of a dome.
Okay.
It's called the Maharishi Gold Patanjali. It's called the Maharishi Patanjali, no, the Maharishi Patanjali Golden Dome of Pure Knowledge. And hundreds and hundreds of people get together in that dome every day and practice transcendental meditation together as a group. And scientists have studied what happens when a large number of people all practice transcendental meditation as a group. They actually find that the level of crime goes down, the level of accidents goes down, the level of fires goes down, the level of all sorts of social problems and criminal problems goes down, because everybody has an effect on everybody else. And when enough people are generating the inner peace that is generated by transcendental meditation, it affects the outside world too. It becomes outer peace, more harmony. So it's a tremendous thing. They call it the Maharishi effect, after the man who brought transcendental meditation to the world. See, transcendental meditation is something that you do sitting down. It's not a philosophy and it's not a theory. It's actually something you do. Like I'm going to sit here in my chair. I sit comfortably in a chair and I close my eyes. And for 20 minutes, I do this mental technique. But if the scientists were here in the room and they had all sorts of stuff hooked up to my head and my breath rate, my biochemistry, my EEG machine, they would immediately tell you that, whoa, there's a big thing going on in your nervous system, because this mental technique is not just a mental technique. It actually is a physiological technique, and it triggers off a unique state of human consciousness that you don't commonly experience in the course of your normal daily routine. Like right now, we're all in waking state. Later on tonight, we'll be in deep sleep. And then part of the night we'll be in dreaming. Then we'll wake up. So there's deep sleep, there's dreaming, there's waking state. And those are the common 3 states of consciousness. But when you do transcendental meditation, it's a new state of consciousness different from those other 3. And the scientists and medical doctors call it a hypometabolic state of restful alertness. In other words, you're completely awake inside at the same moment that you're in a deeper physiological state of rest than you are at the deepest point in night's sleep. So it's unique. And it's in that state that what they call stress is a bigger deal than people realize. It's like, suppose someone slaps you in the face. So suppose you're in an automobile accident. Imagine that these fingers are the fine nerve endings. Your nerves get all bunched up in the knots because of the stress of the impact of the accident. And when you go to sleep at night, they can't unknot because the rest isn't deep enough. When you do transcendental meditation, you have knots of stress in your brain and your spinal column and in your heart and in your internal organs, knots of stress that have been there your whole life that start unknotting, unstressing, and go back to normal functioning, so that you begin to expand your consciousness and start more of your consciousness. I was sitting in the group meditation in that dome one day in February 1983. Also helps your memory too. Transcendental Meditation, February 1983. And suddenly, all at once, because twin galaxies have become so much famous, all at once the idea burst into my mind. It came out of nowhere. It says, you should call the mayor. No, you should call the governor of Iowa. You know, the governor, the head of the whole state. And you should tell him that he should come here to Ottumwa, and you should honor Ottumwa for this incredible thing. Because even though we were a state that was nothing but cornfields, we were the leader of the electronic entertainment industry. So that was tremendous contrast. Cornfields, video game capital of the world. So we should have the mayor, the governor, come and honor us and make some statement about this. So this idea entered my head again and again while I'm meditating. So I called up the mayor's office and I told her we're in Ottumwa, and I told her the story of how we were the cornfield area. However, we were the video game capital of the world. And she immediately says, oh my goodness, this could be it. This could be wonderful, she says. We've been trying to think of a reason why the governor had to go down to Ottumwa and visit that city. Maybe it could be this. Before everything was over and everything was settled, the governor came down and declared Ottumwa the video game capital of the world. The head of Atari came from Los Angeles for the same meeting and declared us the video game capital of the world. The head of the Amusement Game Manufacturers Association from Washington, D.C. came and in that same ceremony declared us the video game capital of the world. The editor of Replay magazine came from LA to declare us. The editor, the top reporter for Video Games magazine out of New York City came. All these people converged on Ottumwa as a result of that one thought that, oh, I should call the governor and have him come and declare us. And so what happens is at that deepest level of the mind, all knowledge is available and anything's possible. It's a dynamic, unlimited, unbounded source of creativity and wisdom and intelligence. And every time you sit down for those 20 minutes, 2 times a day, in the morning, then later in the day, you open yourself up to that field. And who knows what incredible, many tremendously successful artists declare that their success is a result of going down there and contacting that field of pure energy and intelligence and creativity that lies at the basis of your mind that you reach every time you practice transcendental meditation. So that's why I meditate. And that's the basis for me getting involved with twin galaxies. And that's the basis for all the successful action steps, all the successful milestones that happened along the way. Because you remember, the video game industry was already very old and very established. I was an outsider and I didn't have any money and I wasn't known by anybody. But suddenly overnight, we went all the way to the front of the line. We became the most important arcade in the world, the place that other people would come to visit because of just of its fame. And that happened 100% because of the energy and clarity and the creative impulses that come up from practicing transcendental meditation. There's a whole TM organization in Paris. Are you in Paris?
No, we are near to Paris. We are 2 hours from Paris. We are in Bourges. It's a very old city. Bourges. We are in the Beaux-Arts of Bourges.
How do you spell that?
Bourges.
Okay, nice name. So it sounds like very old. Was Joan of Arc ever in Bourges?
What?
Jeanne d'Arc?
No, it was in Orléans.
Oh, okay.
But it's near from us, yeah.
She was in the north.
Yeah, a little bit in the north. Like Orléans is between Paris and Bourges. Huh?
Okay. So are you in the north? Are you north of Paris or are you east or west of Paris?
We are in the south of Paris. We are in the middle of France.
Okay.
And so I just have a question about meditation. So I assume that you're meditating every day.
Every day.
So twice a day.
Twice a day.
And if I wanna meditate as you do, I just have to sit anywhere and during 20 minutes.
You have to go learn the technique.
Yeah.
You have to go. You can go hear the whole thing explained as a free lecture. and there's a big center in Paris, but you can contact them in Paris and they'll tell you where the local teacher is, because there could probably be a teacher near you
Okay.
that wouldn't have to come all the way. And the teacher can come and explain it to all of you as a free lecture so that you'd
Okay.
understand exactly how it works.
Okay.
But when you sit there, you're thinking a mantra. You've heard the word mantra?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a sound that has no meaning. It's just
Yeah.
a sound that you use for the sound value. And the teacher's trained to know what sound is right for each one of you.
Okay.
And when you think that sound, it makes you transcend and go to that source of energy and intelligence that's at the basis of the mind.
Okay.
And you will be very impressed.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Very, very impressed.
So-
And it's very healing. If you have health things or other problems with the physiology, this is very healing. Yes.
So hello, my name is Martin.
Martin?
Yes. I have one last question, or one of the last question. I want to speak with you about video games. What do you think about new video games like AAA? I don't know if you know it. Or are you playing new video games?
Well, I'm so busy doing the trading cards and working on the music that I don't have time to play video games. However, here's some important information. Back in 1982, when we first brought all the champion gamers together, all those gamers of that era wanted to be professional video gamers.
Yeah.
They all believed it was going to happen. And it's what they wanted more than anything. And the only reason it didn't happen was not because they weren't ready for it and not because they didn't want it, but because the world wasn't ready for them yet. It was too soon.
Yeah.
Today, because of technology, they're saying, oh, esports gamers have come alive today. Well, the gamers of 40 years ago, they were esports gamers too. But they didn't have any opportunity to prove themselves. They didn't have any opportunity to participate in organized video game playing, except for what I did. So there's a fiction out there. A make-believe idea that esports people started in this modern generation and that it didn't start before. But the first people to play video games wanted to be professional gamers, and they believed in it, and they were hoping it was going to happen in their lifetime, but it couldn't. And another thing, there's this fiction out there that spectator sport, that video game playing has now become something worthy of a spectator sport. Well, back in the old days, 40 years ago, if you were a good video game player and you were the best video game player in the arcade, you would get a crowd around you. A crowd of people would gather around you and watch you play because people were very willing and interested in watching great game playing. So in other words, the seed of spectator sport was alive and well, even back in 1982. And it's not something that just started right now in this modern era. It was around from the very beginning. It's just that the technology wasn't available to allow spectators to join in and watch a game from around the world. Now, if Billy Mitchell could have played Pac-Man with the technology they have today, 10,000 arcades would have signed up to watch him play. But that technology wasn't available. But nowadays, when the best League of Legends people play, 5 million people will watch online because technology is available. So the big difference between the game players of today and the game players of yesterday is that the technology is available to allow modern esports. And that's a very important thing to realize. You haven't asked a question yet.
I have a last question. You're still judging performances in
Not really. Maybe once a year I might do a couple of things, but generally I'm completely retired from that. I generally focus on the music and the trading cards.
Okay. You have
Thank you, Martin. And who are you?
Andy.
Andy, like Andrew?
And thank you for your time. We're really glad to hear you. I have maybe one one thing to ask. Could you maybe can you say something in French for our show? Maybe like the jingle of our show, it would be honored to your voice.
Je m'appelle Walter.
Can you say bienvenue à Plateau Ciné?
Bienvenue
À Plateau Ciné.
à Plateau Ciné. À Plateau Ciné. Sorry, bienvenue à Plateau Ciné.
Yes.
Is that almost right? Bienvenue à Plateau Ciné.
Yes, thank you.
Right?
Yeah, that was
Perfect. Plateau Ciné is the name of our show.
Plateau Ciné. Oh, so it's scene, like the word scene. Ciné.
No, cinema.
Like cinema.
Yes.
Cinema.
It's short
Cinema.
for cinema.
Cinema. How do you pronounce that?
Cinema.
Cinema.
Yeah.
Platform. Plateau. Like platform. Plateau.
Yes, it's like comment dire, un
Plate.
jeu de mots.
A plate.
Yeah, a plate.
A plate, and the contraction of cinema. It's plateau. It's like plate cinema.
Cinema. Plateau Cinema.
Yeah.
Is that right? Plateau. So welcome to Plateau Cinema.
Yeah.
Bien-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe we can finish here. So yeah, as Andy said, thank you for your time, and we're so
Yeah,
glad
tell me
to.
You didn't tell me your name.
Yeah, I'm Theo. Sorry.
Theo?
Yeah.
All these biblical names. Theo,
Yeah.
Andrew, not Guillaume. Guillaume is like French and English kings, you know? Did you tell me your name?
My name is Rivka.
Lifka or Rivka?
R-E. No, comment on dit?
R-I-V.
R-I-V-K-A.
That's like Russian or something. That's not French, is it?
It's an Hebrew name
Hebrew?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
from the Bible too, but the Old Testament.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye
now.
bye.
What time is it there, by the way? What time is it?
It's
It's
9
It's
a.m.
almost 10. It's almost 10 p.m.
Okay.
PM.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you very
bye-bye.
much. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.